So when I first came here 3 years ago, three falls ago, I was really kind of unaware of really anything about this program, history, what it was like beforehand. You know, all I know is I kind of walked into this space and spent some time trying to make it work for me. And while that also means it worked for the students, it's almost kind of in a selfish way, like I'm trying to make the space work for myself. And you know, as the more I got sort of comfortable with my own infrastructure and I was able to settle down, it kind of gave me the opportunity to look a little bit further into like, what is the legacy of this place, you know? And I had heard all this stuff about, you know, printmaking being this big, huge thing here. So I kind of decided to like, let's take a look. And you know, it's not very hard. I mean, the fact that Spruance is on the name of the building kind of gives you an indication that, you know, printmaking is a part of this, and that's who to start with. So, I mean, that's what I did. I really just went to the library over in the, you know, Arcadia Library, and I just started looking through printmaking books. And not only did I come across the Lord Abernethy, is that how you pronounce his name? Biography of Spruance. I also found the class that he used to teach, which was the history of printmaking. And he has like kind of like the syllabus essentially, all the slides, you know, kind of his lecture and notes, not in like a book form, but almost kind of in like an informative pamphlet. So I kind of just grabbed all that stuff and started, you know, reading it, going through it, sort of, you know, understanding how he ended up full-time teaching here, all the sort of circumstances. I mean, some of them kind of insane, that actually had to sort of happen for him to be able to have a full-time job, you know. I like the fact that he wasn't really like someone who off the bat was, you know, like the first #1 choice. I feel like the fact that he kind of, I don't know, weasel, but like it's like through these circumstances sort of ends up as this person who's not only, you know, teaching printmaking here, but in a lot of ways running the department and sort of becomes this focal point. You know, I kind of was interested in seeing if I could search out a lot of any of those connections. And the one connection I have is through the Cresswell family, who runs the Philadelphia print shop in Chestnut Hill, which if you watch Antiques Roadshow, you see he's Cresswell Sr., he's like the print guy. John, his son, married my ex-bandmate Melissa. They just got married last weekend. So John sort of, at the same time I'm getting interested in Spruance, started working for his father. Again, stupid coincidences kind of happening together at the same time, and I decided that Chestnut Hill is ridiculously close not to go to the print shop and look around. And I, you know, kind of made a couple trips there and saw the Spruances they had. And the one I did see was the Girl with Cigarette, which is the print that this print is based off of. And, you know, it wasn't immediately to me the thing that I was like, this is the print that I want to like do for this project, but there is something sort of different about it. It's a much more simplistic version than a lot of his work. A lot of his work is much more elaborate in composition. I mean, just sort of the central focus is really nice. I really like that. You know, and then I started tooling around here looking for secret Spruance hiding places. I hear rumors all the time like, oh, in this building they're sitting on the floor and you could just take them, you know, and I would reach for that building, and of course I would never find anything. And, but I did make connections with the archivist, and I did look in the library, and I did see what they had here. And you know, a lot of the collection that we have is sort of much later on in his career. Like a lot of his color lithography, and I've just never really been one for color lithography. Like it's not that his are bad, or it's just I just don't think in general color lithography really works. Because most people think of color lithography, it's actually a black and white litho that's been hand colored in watercolor. So it's kind of a different thing that he was doing. Anyway, back to the print shop. I kept bringing students there just as, you know, just as a great sort of learning place to see this master of American print just sitting all in this one place in these drawers. And, it's just a really great experience for not only for my students to see, but every time I would go back there, I kind of rediscover something I miss the first time, but man, I kept coming back and looking at that image over and over again. Like to the point where I was like, how can I get $1,500 to buy this and hang this in my house? You know, like there's like I got a scheme, like somehow I can afford this, you know. I can't afford it, but so, you know, kind of segueing, not really, but kind of in tradition, you know, again, learning about Spruance makes you learn about the person that came after them. The person that came after them was this lady, Judith Brodsky, who now runs the Contemporary Center at Rutgers, who is this huge printmaking figure, like contemporary printmaking figure. Like her studio produces these amazing editions. She's like this icon of print. I got to meet her once. I was like, oh yeah, you know, I teach in Arcadia, and she's like, oh yes, thank you. And, you know, anyway. So, you know, it was kind of cool, like, you know, you're learning the legacy, you're following it down, you know, and then really the last full-time person here was Bob Morrow, who's now the department chair. And, you know, kind of after Bob, it's like there's nothing really in between that. But when Bob started teaching, my aunt started school here. So she was a early art therapy major, did printmaking. So there's kind of this weird, you know, this weird connection to Spruance that I'm like researching, and then, you know, I'm trailing this sort of family connection that is a little, I don't know, like I'd never thought about it until I got the job here, that, oh my God, like this is, not only is this the same room that my aunt went to school at, she finished her art education, this is also the room that Spruance was in. There's this kind of this circling, spiraling of things all happening at, I don't know, at once. And then we get this faculty show, which is, you know, scale, and here I am trying to figure out what the hell I'm gonna do with that, and figuring out how I can in a way that my pieces somehow have something to do with scale. And I was like, well, you know, I've been staring at this Spruance piece for months and kind of thinking about all these things in general, like this is an interesting thing that might work for this. So again, when it came to choose an imagery or choose an image, it was really easy to sort of go back to, well, that's my favorite. That's the one print that sticks out in my mind that I know that I could do, well, not justice, but it kind of works kind of with what I do. Well, the thing is, it's like, he's a lithographer, that's a drawing directly into the stone. I don't draw. So I'm like, okay, what else can I do? How can I reinterpret this? You know, and I'm a photographic printmaker, so it was easy. I was like, all right, I'm gonna take a photograph. I'll recreate the photograph, I'll set up the scene, you know, I'll use my wife as the model, I'll use my house, and so it'll have some sort of weird new connection. And then you realize that when you draw on a lithostone, you're drawing forward, but it prints backwards. So like mistakes in proportion, in scale, in everything get flipped, and they're all weird. I was thinking, okay, what's the hardest thing I could do? What's the most challenging thing I could put on myself to kind of equal, or to sort of, not equal, but how can I replicate sort of his own mastery of that technique? So I chose to work with this technique called CMYK intagliotype, which is something that I worked on in grad school, something that I spent a lot of time as an individual perfecting. And then the technique that I actually ended up choosing is sort of a hybrid version of that, which involves not only a four-color process, but involves construction. And the idea behind construction is that you're exploring all layers and all connections of CMYK in one image. And I think I need to increase the pressure. So we'll see if this works. So basically, it was kind of this big challenge, like, okay, well, again, I can't necessarily match, I'm not gonna do a litho, that's not gonna work. You know, what are some other ways I can do this? Okay, so that's already said that. So I chose this process, which is really a giant pain in the ass, because it really doesn't involve any real way to register except for using your eyes and trying to see these hidden lines through the plate to line up, and it's just kind of crazy. But you end up with this really cool kind of thing in the end, which to me, again, sort of modeled, you know, his experience with the litho. I mean, I don't know whether he had any problems printing his litho. That might have been really easy for him to do, but for me, in my eyes, that's the difficult thing. Like, you know, it might have just been the natural thing that he was used to doing. But I will say that I made these plates, I put everything together, and I pulled it once, and it was perfect. So as far as I was concerned, it's kind of like this little hidden secret sign that, all right, I did the right thing, I made the right decision, I chose wisely, and I'm getting good results as a result. Okay, the blue one's always the hardest. The film's blue. Let's find some fingers. Okay, there we go.
So how does this relate in with the art show's theme, scale?
I mean, I really see it as like, I'm small, he's big. Like, very kind of childlike expression of scale. Like, you know, like you're kind of, you know, that Arium, and you're standing on the shoulder of giants. Sort of like. That I really take that on as a personal responsibility. I see it as like, this is the program, this is how this, you know, this is the quality, this is the beauty that deserves to come out of here, and I'm gonna essentially put everything I can into it to sort of get it back to where it was. You know, in my estimation, I imagine that when I started here, it was very similar to what it was like when he did. Maybe there wasn't a lot of things here. Maybe he had to really work to cultivate a program to get students to kind of start the tradition. And I don't know whether that's actually going to work or not, but I like to think that every kid I get in here, the more BFAs coming through my program, the stronger the program builds, and printmaking builds, and it builds, and it builds, and it builds, and it builds. You know, Chelsea in the other room is my first BFA. Beforehand, they weren't even able to tell me when the last BFA came through this program. So, and I know I have 3 more after her, and I have 3 more after her. So like, as far as I'm concerned, it's just this exponential growth of printmaking. Girl's cigarette, just. But the one that shows a little bigger, like paper size. And we're a little off registration, you know, but nobody knows the difference.